Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to your live Q&A Investment Dominator call. And I am Warren Davis, and glad to be with you here on this beautiful Monday, June 3rd, 2019. And we are having this broadcast from, well, I guess I'm upstairs in a condo. We're over in Sparks, Nevada, visiting family, and it's good to be with you here. I can oversee um, a pool area. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Real quickly, before we get into that, I'd like to do a quick sound check and make sure that you can hear me. Thank you. Thank you, Brian from Arkansas. I always appreciate that. Oh, great, great. Excellent. You can see my how-to screen and only my how-to screen. Good. And I'm not in my office, and I want to apologize up front, just in case things don't go as smoothly as I plan. But as I forestated, I am in Sparks, Nevada, in a condo, and we are here visiting family, and it's been great. Uh, the family's out at the pool right now. They're firing up the barbecue, and my hopes for today is that they save me a little bit while I'm on this call with you. But it's good to be here. We're going to hopefully get a lot of your questions answered. We're going to start the call a little differently than we normally do. Just want to make sure you remember that on this Thursday, I won't be on the call again. We will be canceling that call. We'll be traveling back to Arizona from the Sparks area. So Thursday, that'll be June 6th. So I want you to put on your calendars that we won't be on the call, but we'll be back again next Monday on the 10th, 5 p.m. Encourage you to send in your questions so that we can get them answered. I had quite a few questions come in over the last week since we were on the 2-day workshop. And so that's why we're going to start the call a little bit differently. Let me make sure I haven't forgotten anything that I wanted to say before we get started with the questions. Appreciate that when you do send in your questions, especially over the live broadcast, if you could say, put a question mark and let me know that it's actual question versus, you're making a statement. We like to get both of them, but I definitely want to know if it's a question I can answer. I want to answer the question. So as I forestated, I kind of wanted to simulate one of those situations where, I've seen Jack and other people like Jack sitting out on a patio and they're able to do their webinars or they're answering questions and, they have their the camera on them and so they're sitting out enjoying the patio and it's a beautiful sunshiny day and, they're sipping tea and whatever. I wanted to kind of simulate that, but it didn't exactly work out for me. I tried to do it on the patio and I was swatting gnats and bees were out there. So I, it, it didn't work out too well for me. So I decided to come inside and I'm upstairs overlooking everybody out there having a good time this evening. And I'm getting a chance to have a good time with you all. So we're going to get some questions answered that came in over this past week. And one of the first ones we're going to start with is actually where should our focus be right now? Since we came back from the 2-day workshop, we were able to see where a lot of folks are, not necessarily having difficulty, but, having a few challenges and really determining, where should they be putting their energy. And a lot of people are putting their energy, we were talking with some of the other coaches and they're putting their energy in places and with to that really are taking their energy and their time, but it really has nothing to do with them moving forward in their actual business. So as you can see, I have the LPG deal flow up and we're selecting, where our energy should be right now is understanding the deal flow as it's laid out here. First of all, selecting a target market. There's some folks that are just in that phase of they've selected their target market. They've a lot of them have a contact list, and I don't know if some of the folks are on the call right now. So they've done good about getting a contact list, and they many of the folks that were at the workshop, have mailed letters, and some have even ended up talking to sellers. And that's something we're going to look at today is talking to sellers, how to talk to sellers. And many have done their preliminary research, and so because they've received requests back from the different ones they've sent, the neutral letter to, on how the people want an offer on their land. So a lot of individuals have already done the step of doing the preliminary research, and then we did quite a bit of work on doing land analysis so that you could actually, based on the market value, you could actually put together an offer and send it out. And so there was a lot of clarity done there. But basically, where I'm saying your energy should be right now is understanding this deal flow. And some folks are, we want to help you with anything that you write in about, even these more complex matters that have to do with your selling or your buying sites. We don't mind working with you on that. But if you haven't been through this process deal flow one time so that you really understand each different facet of this area, and you have your site set up at least so it can handle if someone calls in and wants to access your site to say they want to buy some property from you, or that they want to sell you some property. Your site should at least be set up to handle that kind of traffic. And then being able to market the property with or without owner financing. We found that a lot of individuals haven't quite learned yet how to market their property in terms of the idea principle and putting ads out there on their sites that capture individuals. And I see we have some questions already starting to come in. Yes, I will get to that, Gene. I see that question right now. I'm gonna try to answer that before we get off the call. We do have quite a few questions to go through today. This being the first one is where should our energy be? And I think our focus should be on the deal flow, all the different processes in the deal flow, and being able to understand what your actions are at each different level of the deal flow. Focus on completing at least one or two rounds of where you have sent letters to individuals. Now they've written back to you and said, hey, I want an offer. So now you have an offer, you've done your research, and you send them out an offer. And if they write you back and say, hey, I accept your offer, what's your next step? How do you open up escrow and do your detailed research? Some folks are getting hung up on making their sites more sophisticated, which is good. Don't get me wrong. But it's kind of like you're teaching Johnny how to drive, and Johnny's in driver's ed, and you're kind of teaching him how to drive, but you're letting him use let's say some of us had a Ferrari or a Lamborghini to teach Johnny how to drive, rather than letting him use the family station wagon. So that's what we've got going on right now, is a lot of folks are at the level of the Lamborghini, where they're making their sites more sophisticated, and they've added these levels of complexity. And really, we're just really learning how to drive. And I want you to know this Investment Dominator has the capability of handling a lot of the Lamborghini level items, because you can see that there's a lot of data that goes into, I'm showing my screen here, a lot of different processes go into the Investment Dominator, and out of the Investment Dominator, you get your letters, your offers, your websites. It's able to calculate tools, and it does all of your analytics, and even more than what's illustrated here in what you see me showing on my screen. Investment Dominator is extremely powerful. So we want to spend our time, though, being able to answer, just say for an example, questions that come from sellers, and questions that come from buyers. We've just as a side note, we one thing I did get a chance to enjoy this weekend is being on vacation and actually having a land deal close. That's never happened to me before. And so we actually closed on a property while we were on vacation. We sold a 0.77 acre parcel. And just so you know, we paid $302.78 for this 0.77 acre parcel. Probably about a month ago, we closed on it in terms of we secured the contract and we sold it for $5,500. And I'm gonna tell you, every time that happens, I get excited about this business, and I can see it working over and over and over again. But I kid you not, we paid $302.78. We sold it for $5,500, owner financing, seller financing rather, and the person just went into our attorney's office this morning and put down a check for $450, and payments are right around $290 a month. And I don't know how long the terms go, but basically, I was highlighting this particular deal that just went through for us because I had a lot of questions to answer for the seller before we got this under contract. And if I hadn't known how to really deal with sellers, we might not have ever gotten this particular one under contract. So I know a lot of you, have coaches, and that's great, and it's good to follow exactly what your coach is saying. That's what I would encourage you to do. Our coach was Jonathan Havlis, and we realized that we were at a certain level with our sites. I mean, we followed the LPG deal flow to the letter. We didn't add anything to our seller or buyer site. We started out at a level of sending out about 200, 250 letters a week. Jonathan, our coach, he was sending out maybe 600, 700 letters a week. But we realized we couldn't be at that level. So my only point here is that, though you're following your coaches, and that's great, sometimes we have to understand our coaches that are at a different level. We had two great coaches over the past weekend in Jeff and James. If you were at the 2-day in Phoenix or in Scottsdale, two excellent coaches. They both have different styles based on their personality. So all I'm saying is you're going to develop your own style as you go forward in your business. So, we couldn't follow everything. We couldn't do everything just like our coach was doing, especially when it came to the volume of business they were doing. We had to learn how to analyze a county, put out so many records, and determine our response from that county. So I'm encouraging you to, follow the LPG deal flow. It's LPG2 deal flow as much as you can, and focus on, dealing with your sellers, and the moving to the different levels where your coaches are at right now will come down the line. We had to learn how to set up our websites and market, properties so that we could actually have properties for sale there. And, we weren't using any third-party tools. And so, I'm going to answer some questions here about, a couple of, well, at least one third-party tool that, individuals are interested in knowing. And we're going to, like I say, do our best to answer your questions, but try to focus as much as possible on being able to understand the deal flow. And we realized that, Jonathan was at one level, our coach was at one level, and we were at a lower level learning to drive the family station wagon, and we weren't at the Lamborghini level. So I hope that that gives a little insight into that question. So one of the first questions that came in was, is Google Analytics Tag Manager a good tool to use on your selling site? Google Analytics Tag Manager. And let's see, here we are. This is a question, that came from one of our students out there. Google Analytics is good, but one of the mistakes students make is trying to think that Google Analytics and the Tag Manager are one tool. And I just want to clear up for you right up front. Google Analytics is a separate tool from the Google Tag Manager. Tag Manager is actually used to feed your Google Analytics. And so I'm going to go as far as I can with answering this particular question. But I can tell you right off, I am not a Google Analytics guru, and I'm going to do my best to help you understand some insights about if you're deciding to use Google Analytics. And the first question was asked, is this a good tool? So I would say yes, if you understand what happens behind the scenes using the Google Tag Manager. Now, from the Analytics Pros, or there's a company called Analytics Pros, and they said, and I'm going to quote them, it said, "We never recommend the use of Google Tag Manager for anyone to use Google Tag Manager on their live site without a few months of training and experience." Because what happens, people, is that Google Tag Manager is actually injecting code directly on your site. And so it's unlikely, they said, in that, that they've seen a lot of sites actually start to work differently. But you'll see in a minute as I get into the Google Tag Manager how when you incorporate that into the Investment Dominator, it could affect how your selling site works. So what I'm sharing with you is that you need some background in handling the different tags and understanding what Google Tag Manager is. It's not something that's just so easy to add to your site. So that's one question. The next question that came in around that is, what is Google Tag Manager? That's one of the main things that you should know. What is Google Tag Manager? It's a tag management system that allows you to manage your marketing pixels, your marketing tag pixels, your Facebook tag pixels, ad words marketing pixels, etc. So if you're thinking to yourself right now, well, what is a tag pixel? That should let you know that you're not really ready to handle or deal with Google Tag Manager. But basically, it handles these pixels, and you can put it on your seller site, or so that if anyone comes or accesses your seller site, as they access it on a regular basis, certain information is going to be captured and sent via Google Tag Manager to your Google Analytics. So it's going to capture certain information. Now, the whole point about using Google Tag Manager, one of the advantages is you don't have to involve, the technical team. So Alex and company would not be involved, does not need to be involved, so that you can capture marketing pixels, tag pixels, etc. It's kind of like a front end that allows you to capture certain information for your analytics, your Google Analytics, and you don't need a technical team to manage that for you. So that kind of, hopefully in a nutshell, kind of tells you what is Google Tag Manager. And so the next question was, what's going to happen behind the scenes of a Google Tag Manager? What happens on your website? And basically, using Google Tag Manager, if you want to do a search for on the website, there is a short video that shows you. I've got it displayed on my screen. If you just searched, see, what did I search? Google Tag Manager, or how to add Google Tag Manager to your website, you'll get this short. There's a short video and there's a short explanation. And I've displayed that right now so that you can kind of get an idea that this is not a simple task, but one that you can take on if you are versed in understanding pixels and how they're used on websites. I personally don't have that knowledge, but I'm just going to share with you, what I do know. So another question that came in is, what's the knowledge base that is assumed for anybody that wants to use Google Tag Manager? And the level of knowledge that's assumed for one that wants to use the Google Tag Manager is that you have some basic understanding. Okay, just real quick here. I want to make sure I get this one down. So what knowledge base? So what do you have to know in order to use Google Tag Manager? And the answer to that is that Google Tag Manager, there needs to be some technical knowledge to understand how to set up tags and understanding variables that are going to be used within the tag pixels, how to set up, how to deal with tags, how to deal with triggers and variables. And if you're dropping, Facebook pixels in, and you'll need some understanding on how these tracking pixels work. So that's kind of like a basic level of understanding that a person needs if they're going to deal with Google Analytics and the Google Tag Manager. So another question that we came in is exactly, how do we add this to your website? And that's where we get into this particular, how to add this to your website. I'm just going to call your attention to this particular article, and I wanted to actually demonstrate this for you. I tried a day or so ago, and it worked just as it was described here, but I was trying not to set up my account, and it seemed like I went on and I set it up anyway. But I wanted to walk you through. If you were to type in, tagmanager.google.com. So again, tagmanager.google.com, it should take you to, give you ability to add a new account. And you would go right in and set up your account. This account name that you see displayed on my screen, it's maybe kind of small for me. I'm hoping you can see it clearly. But this particular add new, set up account, Google wants it to be your, an account name that you want to call. Usually your business name goes in here, okay? So after you put in your business name, you would then set up a container. And that's step number 2. I wanted to demonstrate for you because I wanted to show you the fields to set up a container. Set up a container, Google says, should be your website name, whatever you call your website. If it's www, wdcellsite.com, that's what your container should be. So once you set that container name, you would just hit create, and I hope you can see the create button here. And what's going to happen is the Google Tag Manager is going to give you some code, some actual Tag Manager code it'll say right here, install Google Tag Manager. And so what you're going to do is you're going to copy this code from the Google Tag Manager, just like you see here, and you're going to paste it. You're going to go back into Investment Dominator, and you're going to click on the customize, and you're going to place it in your website tracking code area. Now, this is an older version of this particular instruction, so I thought I would show you. Once you copy all of this text out of the Google Tag Manager, you would come in to Investment Dominator, go under Customize. As you can see, let's see, Customize, and Let's see here. You want to put it under, I believe it's your website settings. Yes, your website settings. So customize website settings, and you're going to paste it. You would paste all that code that you got from the Google Tag Manager into your tracking code. Now, this is what I want to call your attention to. If you read this little, highlight this question mark here. It says in this section, you can enter in tracking tags that will appear right before the ending tags of each page of your website. Warning, I want you to understand this. Please only use this section if you have experience with web scripts, as what you put under this section will have an effect on your entire site. So people, I just want to caution you, so that your site continues to work. This should be safe. Once you get to the Google Tag Manager, this should be safe code for you to install here under your website footer tracking code. But I cannot make any promises as to what may happen. I haven't actually gone through this process. So I just want you to be careful and understand that this is a part of your installation on the web, on your website in Investment Dominator, that could cause you some issues, and you'd end up calling Alex or calling someone else on the technical side to help fix your site. So I'm just going to encourage you to be careful there and proceed with caution. Okay, so that's basically how you tie, because it says once you've put that code in, it says congratulations, your website is now linked with Google Tag Manager. And so anytime anyone goes on your seller, or your buying site, there's going to be certain data that is captured and is going to be communicated to your Google Analytics, and the Google Tag Manager is the one that's going to be handling that part. Okay, so that's about as far as I can go with it. Wish I could help you more for that, but if you run into any issues, I'm sure you can put in a trouble ticket, and I'm hoping everybody remembers how to put in a trouble ticket. You come up under, and you can say create a new support ticket, and once you put in whatever issue you're having, the team will get back to you on that particular issue. Okay. Did want to communicate one more thing to you, and I apologize for not having this up sooner. Let's see here. If you want additional information on, like you'd like a tutorial on actually how to set up your Google Tag Manager, and that can give you some background, I'm going to paste it on the screen here. This is a good tutorial that you can go through, and it's an hour-long tutorial, the first part of it, but it's www.orbitmedia.com blog. What is Google Tag Manager and why use it? I found this to be helpful in understanding more about Google Tag Manager and how to use it. So you're welcome to go into this. I think the first hour is free, and I think the second hour of training, they charge a nominal fee, like I don't know if it's $15 or $20 US dollars to see the second part. But again, this is being recorded, so you're welcome to play this back if you want to see that particular URL for the YouTube video on how to deal with Google Tag Manager. So we do okay, Brian, I got your question there. On this Thursday coming up, you mentioned Thursday. Yes, this Thursday only, the 6th of June, there will not be a training call. There won't be a webinar. So there's really no information to get because I will be traveling, and to my knowledge, there's not someone else that's going to step in and handle the webinar. So I'm sorry to say that this Thursday there won't be a webinar. We won't be back here until next Monday, the 10th of June. Okay, so hopefully, you'll be fine until then. Okay, so moving on with our questions here. We got another question came in. From the 2-day workshop. We went, so many things were gone through on the 2-day workshop, and they were gone through rather quickly. And one of them is this pretty straightforward and simple one, but we're going to go through real quick. Is how do you highlight records, in Investment Dominator? And some of you may already know this, but we're going to just go through it for those that are a little newer. So as you can see, I'm in my land deals record here. And if I want to highlight, let's say this record, and let's say this record. And the only reason for highlighting is you may be working on it on a couple of records, and you could have, pages and pages of records in your Investment Dominator display. As you can see, I've got some, quite a few pages here. I think I've only got 4 pages on here, but on my regular account, we have several hundred pages of records that are displaying. So if I want to highlight these, I'm simply going to select them. Remember, any commands at this level are corresponding to record selections here in your land deals display. So I've selected 2 records. I just want to come in here and say highlight, and this box will come up and it says highlight or unhighlight. So I'm going to highlight these records. This is pretty straightforward and should work every time. So I highlight and I'll just say confirm. Okay, 2 records have been highlighted. And as you can see here are my 2 records. So if I were, several pages in and I needed to highlight a record, you can highlight as many as you want so that they can easily be found. And it's just that simple, okay? So, actually it brought it back. And of course, if you want to highlight them, just select them again and hit the unhighlight and confirm. So again, we record these. You can come back here and you can look at right at the 30. We're 31 minutes in, and we answered that question. Okay, pretty straightforward there. And continuing on. Okay, now we did have some questions coming right out of the 2-day of how to change the default for our offer letters that go out. I want to discuss this just a little bit with you so that you understand the background. When you set your offer letters that go out, and these are any records that are in pending preliminary research. So the question was, how do you set, you change the default date on your offer letters? If I were to select this record in pending preliminary research right now, and I generate documents, and I come down here and I look at the offer that is generated, what I'm going to show you is the date. Normally in a lot of most of our Investment Dominator systems that are already set up. I'm sorry for the slow. Okay. All right. Sorry for the slow response time here. I'm on this resort's Wi-Fi, and it's obviously a little slower than what I'm used to here. But again, we're going to generate the offer. And what we're going to focus on here, what we're focusing on, people, is the date. You see the date, the closing date. Usually in Investment Dominator, it defaults to 90 days, which is 3 months. So it gives you 3 months to actually close on this property, and that's controlled within the Investment Dominator. So the reason why this is very important, in the beginning when we were, getting our first few deals, you know, 3 months goes by pretty quick, especially once you realize if a records and pending preliminary research, once they accept your offer, right? You've already communicated them, I'm going to basically close on this property in 3 months. Well, now I've got to do my marketing, and I've got to find a buyer. And 3 months may seem like a long time, but 3 months goes by pretty quick. So we started setting our closing dates. We started giving ourselves 6 months. And the way you can do that is you come up here into customize, and it's under document template settings. You expand that. Under your document template settings, you see here my default offer options on the escrow is set to 90 days. Well, I want 180 days. And it can be the same for your option contract that you might want to send out. This one controls the option expires on. This one is the offer expires, close of escrow. And I'm going to set that to 180 days. And don't forget to update your site. Okay? So once I update my site, that's set now to 180 days. Now I have 6 months. And I can tell you that you'll probably wish a few times, especially as your volume increases, your volume of business increases, you'll wish that you had set that to 6 months in some cases. Now, a lot of times you can close sooner than 6 months, but it's good to give yourself that time. You don't want to have to go back to the seller and renegotiate your closing date. It appears to the seller like sometimes maybe your company doesn't have their business together because they promised you a closing, and it's kind of like managing your customers' expectations. So they expect a quick closing, or they expect to close to have a closing at least by the date that you communicate. So if you communicate 6 months down the road, at least they're saying, okay, well, I've given this company 6 months to close on this property, and I won't look for my money before 6 months. Now, if you close earlier, you're a hero. So I call it, you're just building in a little hero space. So let's look at our offer now that we've set it to 180 days. And as you can see, our date now is 12/1. So I just want you to know this closing date is controlled through Investment Dominator, and that's how you set that date to give yourself some additional time. You don't have to take my advice, but if I were you, I would change that in my Investment Dominator right now so that you give yourself 6 months. And sometimes the sellers will come back, and that's one of the questions that they'll ask you. I was going to go through some questions that the sellers ask you. Very good question that just came in from Brian. And he said, do you recommend signing the offer agreement before mailing it to the seller? And the answer to that is yes. Because what you're dealing with, especially with sellers, not so much, well, and I'm going to say buyers as well, but what you're dealing with is the people are learning to trust you. And we've had a lot of sellers that, or a lot of individuals say that they were leery of our company before we started doing business. And so I'll generate this again. We sign ours up front because we let them know this offer that I'm giving you. Remember, this has a net to seller amount on the offer. And so, purchase. They're looking for their $1,750.50. That's net to seller. They're looking for that. And they want to know that you're willing to, oh, I got you. I got one. We normally we print ours off as we print our offer letters off. I sign it as the manager of my company, and I date it, and I let them know I'm willing to sign my name. I'm going to put my name on the fact that you're going to get $1,750.50 in your pocket once this transaction is done. It's a small thing, but it builds trust with your potential sellers and people that you're doing business with. Anytime they're willing to see, and I don't give them it's not a printed signature. I actually sign my name in blue pen, or my wife signs her name, saying that this money is going to go to you no matter what. So yes, Brian, we definitely encourage you to sign your offer letters, and it lets your sellers know that you're serious about this transaction. And you're not just looking for them to sign their life, or make their commitment, and you're not willing to make a commitment on your side. So, good question from Nicholas too. I'm going to get back to, okay, creating a task. Okay, even before I answer that one, that's a good question. I kind of want to finish up with sellers, a little discussion on sellers, because we had a lot of questions over the weekend about how to deal with questions from sellers. And so let's see, we're starting at 43 here, 43 minutes into the call. I tell you, this time goes by so fast. So one of the questions we get from the sellers. So remember, we've sent a neutral letter out. We've gotten a response back. We have a record in pending preliminary research. And we want the seller to sign that document and send that back to us saying, I accept your offer. So one of the first questions we get from the sellers is, can we get a bit more on our offer? So sometimes a seller will call back and say, we received your letter. Can we have more on that offer? Now, if you have gone in, and I'm going to do a real quick calculation here. Let's see. Our minimum is 2,700. Our maximum is 4,050. So if I were to send an offer initially to a seller, I would send somewhere in between the minimum and the maximum, so that, and depending on the property and where it's located, etc., I'll give them an offer somewhere between these two amounts so that I have some wiggle room. I have some play room. So if I send them an offer, let's say back for $3,600, dollars, or $3,400, I might be right around $3,400 for this offer, right? As opposed to what you see here, 3,459.72, 73. Okay, $3,459.73. I'm going to be right here in between these two amounts. So if they call back and they say, hey, can we get a little bit more for that offer? I already know I have some wiggle room because I kind of start right in the middle. And that's just the way I handle it. Now, this is your business. Um, some individuals, like our coach said, he starts with the lowest amount, so he sends back the minimum amount. I've heard other individuals say they send back the maximum amount. So it is your business. I go right there in the middle because I already know what the calculations say, and if I want to give them more, based and have them sign that, and I can't tell you how many times that has resulted in a seller sending back a signed agreement because I was willing to move on my price. If you start with the maximum, you're already at the maximum, and you're going to go above what Investment Dominator is stating. Another question we get: are you aware? They call our office and say, "Are you aware of the value of my land? Do you know what my land is really worth? You know, uh, it's low where it's located, and what the county assesses at. Do you know the value?" And I say, "Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We do know the value. We're real estate investors, and we've researched and calculated, the your particular parcel, and we're definitely not trying to insult you in any way. We're looking to do business, primarily the property owners who no longer wish to pay taxes on their property. They have little or no interest in their property, and they're ready to liquidate and get some cash in their pocket. So, and don't be afraid to say that. We're not trying to insult you in any way. We're just doing, this is what our algorithm has printed out for us and stated that your land is worth to our company. We have certain partners that we work with, and so we, we understand if you want more, if you want closer to market value, we're not going to pay market value for any property that we acquire. So hopefully we can do some business here. If we can't, then hey, you just mark them as closed and you move on. Don't haggle, because you will come across those that have said, look, I inherited this land. I don't want this land. I'm ready to get rid of this land. And they will give you their business. Trust me on that one. That's how we just bought that property for $300. I would have never thought someone would sell 0.77 acres, almost a full acre, for $307. But thank God they did. I mean, we profited from that. So another question we get: why does it take so long to close? Why does it take so long to close? And let them know we give ourselves 6 months. We can normally close sooner than that, but we want to do our due diligence when it comes to your property. We have certain processes that each parcel goes through as we do our analysis and our due diligence on our end, and it takes us time, and we work with other partners in this process. So it does take us time. Now we look to close much sooner than 6 months, but we want to give ourselves that time, and that's the answer I give them when it says, why does it take so long to close? You may feel like you don't need this information right now, but if you haven't had a deal go through, you'll probably end up listening to this recording again. Another question we get: what do you plan to do with the property? So they're asking me as a company, my company holder, if I sell my land to you, WM Agape, what do you plan to do with this property? And we tell them straight out, some properties we'll keep in inventory, and others we move on to our partners. Those are our buyers, right? Those are our partners. We don't tell them that, but we just say, well, some we move on to our partners, and we are in the process of determining, how to best handle your parcel at this time. We will keep you posted. And that's as much information as we give them. What do we plan to do? Because they're wondering, are you going to build on it? Are you going to try to sell it again? What do you want this property for? Don't feel obligated to give them too much information. I remember when we first got started, every time a buyer or seller would ask me a question, it's like I would feel obligated to give them this long explanation of what, to explain or to answer their question. And I've learned since then, they really only care about, you know, the check that they're going to receive for selling their property to us. A last question I'll share with you, that we've got several times since we've been in this business. I just found this letter yesterday. I just found your letter, your offer to us yesterday, and the deadline shows today, or the deadline is already passed. Can I still sign it and send it back to you? And we say, of course, yes. We give them two options. They can either cross out the date, the expiration date, initial it, and they can send it back, or um, we'll give them the choice. We'll let them know we can email you another uh, contract, and then you can sign that and get that back to us. The fact that they have one in their hand right there is an incentive for them to just cross out that date, initial it, and put in the new date. And you tell them to put in 90 days or 180 days. Let them know the date that you want them to put it in there, and they will send that back to you saying that we accept your offer. Some will want to negotiate a little bit at that point because they feel like, well, you're interested in getting the contract back, so can they get a little more money? But this business works over and over and over again. The cookie cutter part of it, it's fantastic. So I just want to give you a few ideas of how you can answer some of the questions. And on another call, I'm going to go into how to answer a lot of the buyers, because buyers can come up with some very tricky questions, and I felt like I needed to answer them as well. So, any case, last question I think I'll be able to work with today. Shouldn't be too complicated. It has to do with creating a task, and Nicholas had asked this question: how to create a task in the Investment Dominator. And if I didn't get your question answered today, because we had a few come in, if I didn't get your question answered today, I will have an answer for you by next Monday for sure on the broadcast for June 10th. So if and I'll have it posted hopefully by I'm going to give myself at least till the 12th of June. So if I didn't get your question answered today, you can look for the broadcast and the notes. If you're not able to be on the call next Monday, I will have your question answered, and you can listen to the broadcast and get the answer to your question by the 12th of June, okay? So how do we create tasks in Investment Dominator? And tasks are usually done so that for either ourselves or other individuals that work and sign into our Investment Dominator accounts. So how do we create tasks? We come up here under our menu bar, and you'll see task is in black. I just clicked on task, and it says add a task. So I'm going to add a task. It defaults to pending. You can drop down and say in progress or completed task. I usually leave it at pending, and I'll title the task. I already had one built in, but weekly ITI reminder. If I want to remind myself to handle my ITI, and I actually want some kind of pop-up when I log into Investment Dominator, I want some kind of pop-up, on a weekly basis. And I'll put some description. Okay, something like that you want to send a note for yourself or for someone, and depending on where you're at, what your location is, this could go for if you have another associate or a VA that works in another a specific location, you may want to change your location field. I don't really think that that's necessary to do a lot of times. And assign to, this is, and again, hovering over the question marks always gives you a helpful tip on any of the fields in Investment Dominator. So to assign the task to Investment Dominator, simply type in their name, then select it as it appears. You can also tag people that are not Investment Dominator users. I've never seen a reason to do that, but who do I want to assign it to? We might have a Pat Live rep, or you might have a VA that you've given access to. You can, assign this to multiple people. So I can assign this task to myself, as well as maybe my Pat Live rep that, or VA that you use that might be one of the people that handle sending out your letternet printing, each week. Totally up to you. Public to all, and I say, of course, no. I'm going to make this a private communication to only the individuals that I specify in the assign to. If you say public to all, anyone that's on the Investment Dominator that has access to your account is going to get this ITI reminder, and you don't want that. You don't want that to happen. So here we are. Today's date is what it defaults to. So if you want to start today, and then when you want it to end, totally up to you. You can have it go out as far as you want to have these reminders, on a weekly basis. Do I want reoccursion? Do I want this to reoccur every week? This option allows you to configure reoccurring tasks that triggers daily, weekly, or monthly. So if I say yes, then it's going to bring up, and I want this done on a weekly basis. I maybe want to do it on every Monday, and I'm going to specify no end date. So I just want this to occur and keep going until obviously it reaches my end date. But pretty straightforward. Tag owner's ID. Not sure what these fields here are. Tag contacts ID. Not sure exactly how to use them, so I'm not going to try to give you any explanation on there. I've created some tags in my particular Investment Dominator. This is a demo account, so I could tag. I'm basically giving them the okay to use any of these tags that have already been created, if that's necessary in this task for them to use tags. If they're sending out ITI, they don't really need to use any tags. So I may want to put in a personal note, and do I want to send a reminder? System reminders appear with the CRM as a pop-up notification. Usually I'll say yes to this, and remind me, 10 minutes before the actual, at some point. I don't know why it says, so many minutes, but you can remind them so many hours, before the time actually comes up, but they will receive a pop-up as they log into the system, or as you log into the system. If you set yourself a reminder, it's going to pop up. Okay, highlighted. You can highlight this task within your Investment Dominator task list so that they see their tasks pop up. I usually will say yes to that. And simply finish and add your task. Okay. Now this is something new that was added for the tasks. To add to the external calendar. We had an actual we had a student in the 2-day workshop. They use tasks very consistently. I don't use task. Okay, and I'm going to say skip that question. All right, and finally, before we hang up, I want to get this last question here. Outside of a webinar, okay, to what email address? can we send our Investment Dominator questions? There's not really an email address. That's Neil's question. So outside of the Investment Dominator, what I would go on and do is put your question into the ticket area. That's going to be one way to get your question answered, kind of, put in a support ticket. You can put your question in and just say that, you have this question and the information that you want to share, what your question is, and link to the issue. I mean, you don't really have an issue, but you have something that you want to, if it's offers or if it's has anything to do with letternet printing. But basically, this is how I would put in or send in any of the questions. They get these regularly, so they're used to handling them, and just hit create a new ticket, and your question will end up coming in. So how to send in your questions. That is the best way. Okay, and we are out of time. I just wanted to real quickly show you that the tasks here are, as you hit task again, you see my private weekly reminder shows up and it's highlighted. And so it's just that simple. So every time weekly on a Monday that this comes up, it'll pop up a reminder for me. And the other, to generate buyers traffic to the site. Okay, that's a good question on Godwin. I can't answer any more questions right now, but Godwin, that's a good question. And I will get that question answered for you. It's pretty straightforward. The answer is yes, but I wanted to go into a little bit more detail. Before I sign off for tonight, I just wanted to let you know, quick thought, leave this with you. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. So many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they give up. And I know that none of you are going to give up, that you're going to keep persevering and going forward. I want you to have a great week, and we will see you here again next Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a great week. Bye now.